Hello, my dear friends. I hope you're all doing well. Today we are learning the 6th chapter in the laws of Deot, of ethics, of the way, what is the ethical and proper way for a person to live their life. And the Rambam is in the middle of telling us what is the best possible form and character traits and what is the best way that we should focus and live our life. And he tells us today in chapter 6 as follows. It is natural for a person's character and actions to be influenced by the people around him. So therefore, a person should always want to associate themselves with people who have a good way and a positive way of life. Because if we are in the company of people who are wise and people who are positive, so then we will in turn also be influenced by them and start living a lifestyle which will be similar and in the path of how they live their life. And not to want to live in the presence and in the area with people who their actions are wicked, and so that we should not learn from them and start being influenced by their wicked actions. This is what King Solomon says in Proverbs. He who walks with the wise will become wise, while one who associates with fools will suffer. So that's the idea of wanting to go in the way and having living in a place where the norms of behavior are positive and not the opposites. Now the question is, what about a person who So the Rambam tells us, therefore a person should always want to live in a place where the people are good. Should always look for a city, a town, a country, a place where the people who live in this city are good people and they live a positive lifestyle. But what about a person who is looking for a place and he can't find a place where everyone in this city is good? There's always going to be a big mix. And he says, just like in our times when there is a lot of people who we're looking for somewhere to live, but we can't find the place which is good. So then the Rambam tells us, so then a person should keep to himself. He should live on his own. And he should try not to mingle too much with the people around him so that he should not be influenced by them. And if it's a country where practicing a positive way of life is something which is persecuted and they won't let him do that, so then he should run away and he should hide in the caves or in the mountains and be able to live a good, proper, positive life. Because it is better to be able to live a person on their own, far away from everyone else, and live a good lifestyle than to be a wicked person and live amongst the people of the city. So that's how he begins this chapter today. So it's a very interesting chapter. Moving on, there is a positive commandment in the Torah where it says that a person must cleave and connect to God. As it says, you shall cling to Him. You shall cling to God. So our sages ask, how is it possible for a person to cling and connect to God? How can we connect ourselves? How can we cling to God? God is not someone who is able. He's not someone that we can, to be able to cling to. So it says in the Talmud that this is a commandment that a person should always cling to those who are studying Torah. They are the ones in this world who are embodying the will of God. They are studying God's wisdom. So we should always want to cling and we should always cleave to those wise people. Therefore, so a person should always, if he's looking to get married, he should want to marry the daughter of a Torah scholar. Or if he's doing business, he should want to do it with a sage, etc. And in general, when we hang out, it should be with people who are more spiritual, godly, and that will have a very good influence and impact on us. There is a mitzvah I see we have a question coming in. How does he say how to handle Christians that want to save you? I thank them and say that I appreciate your concern, but please respect my beliefs. I think that's a very good answer. I think that's exactly the way to answer that idea. There is a mitzvah, the Rambam tells us, there is a mitzvah that we must love every single Jew. Now, in general, a person must always love every human being, every creation in this world. And that's a general concept where we have to have respect and love for every creation of God, every single human being. Over here we have a special mitzvah where it says in the Torah, "Ve'ahavta," you shall love l'reacha kamocha. To your reacha would be your friend or your neighbor, someone who is similar to you. In other words, we're talking about the Jewish people. So there is a mitzvah where we must love another Jew just as we love ourselves. So loving every other creation in the world is something which is a mitzvah as well, but it doesn't have to be in the way that we love ourselves. The way we love ourselves is a very, very high sense of love. And even if it pains ourselves, we still have a mitzvah to love our friend as we love ourselves. And that is something which we have to always be involved, and if we see that a person is going to lose money, we should help them and make sure that they shouldn't lose it, and we should always give them the proper honor. So that's in general. And if a person, on the contrary, is someone who degrades someone else, so then it says that person does not have a share in the world to come. It's very, very, very harsh. If a person degrades or embarrasses someone and enjoys their friend's shortcoming and it gives them a pleasure, that's something which is very terrible. Then there is a special mitzvah over here, which is in regards to the love for a convert. So there is a mitzvah of loving every human being. There is a mitzvah in to love a Jew, to love your fellow as you love yourself. Then there is another mitzvah, a special mitzvah in regards to the love for a convert. And that is included also within the mitzvah of loving your fellow Jew, but there's also a special mitzvah in regards to loving a convert. And so much so that God compares the love for a convert, someone who becomes part of the Jewish people, as much as the love for God himself. He compares the two. It says you should love the convert and you should love God. They come together. And because it says that God loves converts, and therefore God wants us to love them as well, specifically. If a person hates someone in their heart, that is a very negative thing, and he actually will go against a prohibition of the Torah where it says that you should not hate your brother in your heart. Although there is no action, and there is no action for this hate, it's just a feeling in the heart, but it's still a prohibition. And similarly, a person is not allowed to hit or do anything or insult another person, which is all included within this idea where we're not allowed to hate someone else. Now, what about if a person wrongs you? Someone does something wrong to you. Someone has wronged you in any shape or form. So at that time, so when a person gets, someone either got offended or got hurt by someone, so he shouldn't keep it within himself. He shouldn't just, keep it in his heart and not tell anyone and not tell anything to the person who did it to him. But rather, on the contrary, it's actually a mitzvah that you should tell them, take them to the side, tell them, my friend, you have actually very much hurt me and you did XYZ. And there is a mitzvah to tell them off, to tell them, you've hurt me. And ultimately, in order to be able to forgive them and put it back into the way it should be. A person who has, if a person sees that their friend is not going in the proper way, and is sinning and is going off the proper path of living a good life, so then there is a mitzvah to rebuke them, to tell them off. Obviously, and he's going to tell us right now, it has to be done in the proper way and should be not for your own personal pleasure to be able to tell them off, but rather on the contrary, it should be for their own good, and you should tell them that, and you should tell them off. At the same time, the Rambam says, when you do tell them off and you see that your words are not helping, you should know that you should stop telling them off when you see that it's not that they're not listening and it's just not doing matters any better. So, but if you are able to to help someone to get back onto the proper path of living a good life, way, following what God wants us to do in this world, so then definitely we have that responsibility to do that, and we shouldn't just say, oh well, why should I mix into their business, but rather it's your friend, you know them, you should be able to help them and help them get back onto to that proper path. Now, when we do rebuke them, when we do admonish, so to speak, a colleague, so then it's a very important thing to know that when we do that, we are not allowed to do it in a way that is going to offend them or hurt them, etc. So much so, it says that it says in the verse, you should rebuke them, but you shall not bear a sin because of him. In other words, that we should not sin while we're at it, ourselves being sinning. Why? Because if we are going to tell off someone and they're going to become embarrassed by us, and their face is going to change colors, as it says in the Talmud. Their face is not allowed to change color. In other words, they should not take this in a way that is going to hurt them. It should, God forbid, by embarrassing them, especially not in public, and that's a very, very terrible thing. And as it says, as we said earlier, a person who embarrasses someone in public does not have a share in the world to come. So it's a very, very important thing to note, that although it's a mitzvah that we should rebuke and help and tell someone to get back onto the right path, we have to know exactly how to do that, so that it should really only be for their good and to bring out the best positive results, that it should be only through kindness and love, and make sure that is the highlight of what is being expressed over here, and not, God forbid, the opposite. The Rambam says that when does this all apply in regards to matters between one man to another? So if a person has wronged someone has cheated someone, etc., so that's something which is we have to be very careful when we reprimand them. But if we're talking about in regards to a spiritual matter, if we're talking about a commandment between us and God, so then we definitely should start by telling them off in private and trying to reprimand them in that way. But if it doesn't work, so then going out in public is another form of action, which is something which, as we find throughout history, that the prophets as always, they publicized the sin in order to strengthen the Jewish people to come back onto the proper way. If a person has wronged someone else, so let's say a person wrongs me, and so in my heart, well, I got hurt or whatever it is, but if I forgive them in my heart and I have no hatred against them, and I am willing to totally, I'm totally ready to forgive them with a full entire heart, that is the best possible way. That is the way of a pious person. A person should do that and should always want to, if it's possible, not to even go down the whole path of telling them that you offended me and they should ask forgiveness and then you forgive them, but rather just on the onset, just to say, I'm okay. I understand that they made a mistake, but I forgive them, and just leave it at that. That's the best possible form. And the last mitzvah for today, the last idea which the Rambam discusses in this chapter, is in regards to orphans and widows. That because of their pain that they have gone through, their spirits are very low and they are more depressed, and therefore there is a special mitzvah to be very careful and show great care for these people who have had a harder time in life. And as it says in the verse, do not mistreat any widow or orphan. So therefore we should always be very gentle and treat them only with honor and never to cause them pain, etc. And even if they have a lot of money, or if it was the wife of the king or someone of great stature, which you can think they are invincible, so to speak, we have to be very careful with them and always show them the greatest care and love, and to make sure that they are always being comfortable and feeling the best because of the pain that they have gone through. And so much so, it says that God says that He has a covenant where between Him and the orphans and the widows, that whenever one of these people who have had this such a hard point in life, and they are needing this comfort, and they are grieving over the death of a loved one, that whenever they will scream out to God, God will listen to them. So if, God forbid, someone is mistreating them and they call out to God because of that, so then God will definitely listen to them, and it will not be good. So that's a very, very important mitzvah, where we have to always be very careful to treat someone who is going through a hard time in the best, proper, gentle, caring, and loving way. So when does this all apply? This is on a general level, but if it is a teacher who is educating a child who is an orphan, so he obviously has to educate them, and obviously sometimes you have to reprimand the child and have to put them onto the right path. Nevertheless, says the Rambam, when you do that, you have to treat them with special distinction, and do it with an extra measure of love and care, and with great mercy and honor, as it says that God will take up their cause. So this applies to anyone who was orphaned, whether it's their father or their mother. And he says that what is counted an orphan? When is a person an orphan? Until what age? So he says that this is in regards to a person that he still needs someone to take care of them. So he needs someone to support them and instruct and care for them. But once they are able to tend to all their needs on their own, once they're grown up, so then they're just like any other adult. In other words, although they are orphaned, they do not have their parents anymore, but they have already grown up, and now they are totally grown and like other adults. So that is the idea of the Rambam for today. And I see, as we have a comment coming in, that as a widower, it can be very frustrating when you tell someone, well, get over it. Of course, it's going to be very hurtful, and it's going to be very painful for someone who is going through such pain, and other people around them cannot understand the pain that they are going through, and they cannot relate to it in the same way. And therefore we have to be overly cautious, so to speak. We have to be extra careful to always show love and care when we're talking about someone who has lost a loved one. And that's a very, very special mitzvah which the Rambam discusses today in our chapter of Rambam. So with that, we complete this chapter, and I wish you all a very good rest of your day, and we will, God willing, be seeing you tomorrow to learn the next chapter.